Hi, I'm Joe LaRocca. Welcome back to the Loss Prevention News Network. We're live here in New York City, live
in New York.
That's right. Just a few blocks away from the National Retail Federation's big show, where they're displaying a number of technologies from every big service provider you can think of in the operations space, supply chain, logistics, really all the non-LP stuff. But it's fascinating to walk the show floor. So if you're here in New York City and you're a retailer, go walk the NRF big show floor. Take a look at what your C-level folks are looking at for future technology. But today I'm joined by co-MC Amber Bradley and a special guest who she's going to introduce right now.
Yes. So we're having our own little action-packed, value-packed party over here a couple blocks down from Javits. But we are joined by Paul Paglia from DKNY, who actually, you just sat down with Gus, gave an action-packed valuable or a totally surviving session. So listen, you talked about adding value to the LP role, which is a big theme. You know, when you talk about decreasing budgets, trying to make sure LP teams are lean and mean, like if you had to pick two things that an LP professional should do going into 2016 to add more value to their role, what would it be?
I think the first would be all about change and change management. It's not a matter anymore of just embracing change. You need to drive change in your company. And the way you do that is, number two to your question, is to attend events like this, seek out any opportunities in the industry to learn about new trends, new technologies, new programs, new processes that are out there, and become as familiar with those as you possibly can, and then go back to your company and help drive the needed change with those new ideas.
So not only just focusing on your traditional loss prevention items, external, internal theft, but what about stock on hand and inventory losses as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Inventory losses, price changes, markdown management in your stores. I mean, all aspects of things that affect the profitability of the organization.
And Joe's got a question for you about counterfeits, because that might be a big deal to DKNY, huh?
No, I'm sure there's no problem whatsoever with counterfeits, right?
Well, I think counterfeiting is a problem with any luxury brand, some more than others. You need to keep a close eye on it, because if you don't, it can really have a negative impact on your brand.
Yeah, I think as we've talked in the past with different retailers about intellectual property rights violations. Last year in New Jersey, in Palisades, New Jersey, there was a $325 million ring operating, and one of those suspects was just pled. Where do you see, with all the new technology and the different capabilities of the public and private sector, how will that help combat the counterfeit and IPR issues going forward?
Social media, I think, plays a big role in the ability to communicate and get the word out as to where you may acquire some of this product. So I think it's important that our industry stays in tune and pays close attention to that area, so you know exactly what's going on well in advance before you find out it's too late.
So I was down in Times Square last night and bought a CKNY. Is that falling into the counterfeit realm?
I think it might. Amber.
Dang, I knew I got too good of a deal on that CKNY, but it just looked so close. The logo was just a bit askew, though. Is that is a first giveaway, maybe, or maybe the C?
It might be a clue. Yeah.
So when I got
that, what in the business you investigators call a
tip?
A tip, a clue, like evidence. We're gonna get into that with Scott Sanford later. He's over in the background over there.
So, Paul, obviously, many companies do training programs with their store folks to spot counterfeit goods when they're being returned to the company. What suggestions would you have for companies that may not be as mature in this area of the business, a new retailer as an example, handling returns and dealing with a counterfeit that comes back to the register? What suggestions, just as an industry person, might you have for somebody in that space?
I would focus in on those products that might be most vulnerable to that type of activity, and then make sure that there's material available to the stores, or at least contact information that they can reach out to at a moment's notice to ask some key questions to validate if in fact that product in front of them is legitimate or not.
That's excellent advice. A friend of mine wrote a book a few years back called Black Market Billions by Hitha Prabhakar. And if you read in the book, what you'll find is that counterfeit goods or intellectual property rights infringement have a significant impact, not just on the tax dollars that are paid here in the U.S. and around the world, but also on jobs here in New York City and around the country, where people are losing out on work. The stores are losing out on sales because knockoffs are coming into the country. And there are some top offenders, right? We all know who they are. We'll start with the big C, China. How do we address this, though, as we go globally? In your company, and you're an LP leader that's been around this business for a long time, what advice would you give to the loss prevention people now coming up, combating these global issues that aren't necessarily tangible? That's not shrink. It's not a missing rack of merchandise, but it's something that might have a more back office or bottom line impact versus an actual hard missing item in the store.
It really goes back to negative impact on the brand. You have somebody that's traveling, possibly overseas, like you say, internationally, and they go into what may look like an authentic, say, DKNY shop, and it's really not. Things may look like they're legitimate, but they're not. And then people purchase those products, and ultimately it hurts folks back at your corporate office, back in your facilities, as well as your brand globally. So a lot of this is going on internationally. A lot of it's going on via the internet, and I think we all just need to keep a close eye on it.
Man, Paul, you are an incredible sport. Because, man, you were like, what are you guys going to ask me? And Joe comes up with all these really ridiculously long and incredibly in-depth questions. But, hey, good for you and good for Joe. We're getting the wrap it up sign. But thank you so much for stopping by. Gus, back to you.